What's up, guys? So, this is my first video, so bear with me on this one. Um, the intention today is to just show you guys the basics of oval racing at the same time as showing you the basics of oval race setup. So, what I'm going to do is just bring up the Texas Oval baseline and show you guys the standard adjustments that you should be making in order to make your baseline faster. This requires no telemetry, no knowledge of the car, no knowledge of setups. These are the steps you should be taking every time you get in the car. And then I'm going to just give you an overview of some of the other stuff that you can do, and I'll leave the result of it as our baseline for week one, which is Texas. We are here at Texas. Track temperature is 83 degrees, 74 degrees ambient. We have uh, dynamic track conditions just to mirror reality, 60% usage. So basically what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to go around um, with the bare bones baseline setup and just get a feel for the car so that I know where we're coming from and how our adjustments are affecting the car. So I'm going to go around for about 5 to 10 laps here. As I'm doing this, I'm just going to go through some basics of IndyCar racing, especially here at Texas, to get you guys up to speed. So first thing I'm going to cover is lines. So you'll notice throughout this video that I am a bottom feeder here at Texas. I like the low line. I think when you can run the low line, first of all, it gives you more room to slide up on the exit of the corner if you have to. Ideally, in this weather, you don't need to. The downside is, of course, it does heat the tire up a little bit more. You do get a little bit more tire wear throughout the course of the run than you do if you're running high line. So the bottom line is exactly what you think it is. You're trying to get as close to that white line as possible. The other trick to running the bottom line is don't hit the white line because it will send you back up the track. So you want to make sure that you're hitting your marks as well as you possibly can. So the other line around here is the high line. So it's nearly in the gray, as you can see. The marbles that iRacing creates. So the advantages of the high line is your car stays wound up a little bit more, so you have a little bit more straight line speed. It's easier on the tires, so you have less fall off as the run goes on. But as you can see, it is a little bit slower. You tend to try and use it as a slingshot and get around them within a set of corners. Otherwise, it's going to be harder for you. And then there's also an in-between line here, and really you see the in-between line, which is sort of around this break and a little bit below the seam of the pavement there. You really see this low line run almost exclusively in the race, or this middle line, sorry, run almost exclusively in the race. When you're trying to get your car out of the dirty air, the guy in front of you, so you don't have too much aero push. So if you're experiencing aero push, you should be looking to move up a lane so that you can get some clean air on the front of your car. So you'll get the speed back along the straight in the draft. So the other thing, just practicing a pit entry. The pit entry here is fairly difficult actually, just because of the speed you're going in the corner before you get down to the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's much shorter distance than you think, and the brakes in the oval car aren't necessarily the best. All right, so let's just look at our laps here. I just did about 6 laps. So basically, running the low line, you're looking at 24 flat, 24.2 for the high line, 24.1 for the middle line. But 24 flat is about as fast as the setup will run as is in this weather. So what we are going to do is just some standard adjustments. So on this front page here, first thing that you're going to do is change your radiator inlet from 1/3, from open to 1/3. The 2/3 setting is for qualifying. It will default back to 1/3 for the race, but I don't recommend leaving it on 2/3 because your data will be a little bit messed up. You'll notice that it changes your balance of your car a little bit by doing that, just from very slight balance downforce change, but your downforce to drag significantly increases. So the radiator inlet is exactly what you think it is. It's an insert that goes into the radiator inlets and basically blocks off 1/3 of the opening. So it basically, the hole is smaller, less drag, basically the same downforce. So then the other thing that we're going to do is change the beam wicker from 1 inch to 1/4 inch. And you see that also significantly reduces your downforce to drag ratio, and it also changes the balance again, making the car slightly more loose. This is fine. The car is slightly tight under the default setup, so we're just going to leave it at 38.74 there for now. And then the final adjustment that we're going to make, and these are what I like to call the standard adjustments that you should be making pretty much every time you go on an oval track. The final adjustment that we're going to make is to the toes. So basically, if you're not familiar with the concept of toe, it puts a little bit of steer into the tires, makes your front tire. If it's negative, it's angled away from the car. If it's positive, it's angled towards the car. So right now, the default is that both the front left and the front right are angled away from the car. So basically, what doing that does is it starts the tire that's going to be loaded the most in towards, like in the direction that you want it to be. So what's going to happen is we're actually going to change the front right toe, to +1. So what this does is it actually, we are now angling the front tires both in the same direction rather than away from each other. So it's actually going to make the car want to turn slightly to the left, which is good for only having to turn left on an oval. And then we're actually going to do the opposite on the rear. So we're going to have +1 and -1, 32nd of an inch, which is doing the opposite. So steering the rear tires away from making the rear want to go slightly to the right. So it actually makes it want to sort of track around the corner a little bit more and rotate quicker. So this makes the car handle a little bit better. The final thing that I like to do is just change the steering offset, because if you noticed, the steering wheel was turning to the left significantly, so you can reduce your workload. I like about -2, -4 degrees. Some people like it so that they're basically straight in the middle of the corner and turn to the right down the straightaway, because it doesn't require much effort to keep it straight in the middle of the straightaway, but it takes a lot more effort to keep it in the corner. Basically, whatever you want. This is just a preference. But so those will be my 4 changes to start off with. So now we're just going to go back out and do 5 or 6 more laps. And I'll talk to you more about Texas and the track. So Texas is big 1.5 mile oval. One of the faster ones that Indy cars are on. Things come up pretty quickly here, so you need to be on your toes, um, reading how the race is going long before you get there. Sudden moves are really not advised here. You sort of gotta, it's a track where you have to be very patient because it's very easy to catch someone out because you're often coming from the top of the track to the bottom of the track as you're entering the corner, and then coming back out to the top of the track.
24.147.
So again, it's a good idea as you're doing this testing to just try and keep the same line as much as possible so that you're really, when you get your lap times in, you're really sort of analyzing how the changes are affecting the car in terms of where you're driving on the track. So if you're setting up your car to really run well low, also don't hit the apron like that. But if you're setting up your car to run well low, you definitely want to consistently run low over the course of your run to see how the changes has affected your line. Because in an ideal scenario, you'd be running the same lines all the time. So if the change that you made makes it harder to run the same line, and you find yourself being more over the track, even though you're a little bit faster, maybe not necessarily the best change to make. You could probably find a way to have the same speed gain in a better way.
23.9.
So just going around the track, there is a bump here in 1 and 2. Throws your car just a little bit. Transition out of 2 is tricky, especially as the track heats up. We won't have to deal with it too badly this week because it is late afternoon temperature. But the transition out of 2 does tend to want to make your car go towards the outside wall fairly quickly and much quicker than you think, especially when you get into the aero push. So I know this isn't a very good indication because the default set has a massive amount of downforce in it, but as you start to dial downforce out of the car, you'll start to notice it wanting to go out towards the wall more and more, and it often catches racers out in their first race here. On the second or third lap, they don't realize just how much aero push comes off of turn 2. Turns 3 and 4 to me are the easier turns, a little bit more constant radius, and it's just a very easy turn to go through. You do get sucked out to the wall off of 4 as well, not to the same extent as 2, but depending on the line you're running, it will happen. So that's basically a lap of Texas. Your 2 danger zones are off of 2 and off of 4, and then just making sure that you're holding your line when you're beside someone is the real key, making sure that you have a car that you're confident when you're going to the bottom on someone that you can hold that line with them outside of you, because they're probably going to squeeze you down a little bit, as is their right. So you need to be able to hold that car down as well as you can. And then we're just going to, there's a break in the wall back there, which is a good place to start braking. If you're new, you can actually go past it a little bit further if you're more confident with braking, but if you're new to the car, to me that's the ideal spot, is that brake on the left hand side, and then you can start slowing down at that point. So just comparing the lap times quickly, so you'll notice we're down into the 23.9s already. We did a 23.90, so we're basically 0.2 quicker just by doing those 3 adjustments. So you guys can't see it, but the car is more stable as well. It feels more connected to the ground. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to look at the arrow. Again, we're just doing stuff that you guys can do without telemetry. You're going to hear telemetry a fair bit on the DW12. Most of the fast guys do use telemetry, not all of them do. Some go by feel, like my teammate Richard. But It is a useful thing for certain aspects of changing the car. For other aspects, it's not important at all. So one of the areas that's not important at all for is your front aero. So, or any aero. Basically, aero is the best way to describe it is done in conjunction with feel and these two ratios down here, your front downforce ratio and your downforce to drag ratio. So your downforce, front downforce percentage is basically the amount of downforce that the front of your car has versus the rear. So right now we're at 38.75. Um, Out there on the track, it feels a little bit pushy to me, but not too bad. Again, this is very much by feel. So um, if you prefer a looser race car, you would want a higher percentage front downforce. If you prefer a tighter race car, you want a lower percentage front downforce in terms of setting your aero up. So one of the things that I will say is that there's a lot of downforce on this car for these conditions. It was very, very easy to drive, didn't even come close to the turn two or turn four wall. So one of the first things that I'm going to do is take away this diffuser exit wicker. So basically, at the end of the tunnel, the diffuser tunnel, there's a small wicker. Um, this is a very fine adjustment for the car, but having it there will increase the total downforce, virtually unaffecting your front to rear balance ratio, but so it'll affect your downforce and your drag at almost the same amount when you have it at either extreme. So removing the wicker, if you'll look, it doesn't change your downforce to drag ratio. It changes the balance slightly, but because it went from a 3/4 inch wicker to zero wicker, it's changed the overall amount of downforce a lot or a fair bit. Um, so that'll make us go a little bit quicker just right off the hop. Um, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you some uh, arrow optimization before I adjust all of the different arrow settings and reduce the overall downforce. So in terms of arrow optimization, you'll hear this a lot. Basically, what that is making sure that this downforce to drag ratio is as high as possible. So um, so the way we do this is by isolating either the front or the rear and adjusting them to make sure that we have the optimum settings in terms of the overall downforce that we want. What I mean by this is what we're going to do is we're going to just adjust the front for right now. Um, and we're going to look at the downforce to drag and see what produces the best outcome. So downforce to drag, what we're going to do is we're going to take our wicker and we're going to reduce it by one option. So you'll see that we went from 38.75 and 3.18 to 3.16. So what we're going to do is we're going to return this front downforce number to the same number it was before, and then compare the two downforce to drag numbers. So since we reduced the wing wicker, what we're going to do is we're going to increase the wing angle back to 38.75. So we're at 3.168. And again, if we go back to 12, or sorry, to a 1/2 inch uh, wicker and back to the 48 degrees, you'll notice we were at 0.183 for that, roughly the same downforce level. You can't get it exact in this scenario, but roughly the same downforce level. So you'll notice the downforce to drag ratio is better with that wing wicker. So now we're going to do it in the opposite direction. We're going to go one notch higher. So we're at 3.175, 39.06. So again, back down. Again, we can't get it exact, but we're at 3.167. So again, this 12 and 45, or sorry, 0.48 is the best downforce to drag ratio we can get. We, if we had less wing angle, we could do the same. Unfortunately, you can't go past 0 degrees on the super speedways, so I can't show you this yet. But basically, You have three options: no wicker, 1/8 or 1/4 on the rear, but you have a much finer adjustment in terms of the in terms of the wing angle. So that's how we optimize the arrow, and we'll do this every time we adjust anything. You always want to optimize, make sure that you have the best wing angle to wicker configuration. And this gets more important going on like road courses and short ovals especially. You want that optimized as best you can. There are less configuration options on the super speedways, so it's not quite as hard to get set up, but it is equally as important to have that downforce to drag number as good as possible. So what we are going to do now is we are going to take out actually quite a bit of downforce because there was a lot of downforce in there, so that means a lot of speed that we're sacrificing. There was almost no desire for the car to take off. So I'm actually going to reduce this down to negative 0.45. So now what I have to do is reduce this wing angle back down on the back to get us back to 38.63. I'm actually going to go a little bit more because it was a little bit tight, and I'm going to put up to 38.83. So you'll notice the downforce to drag did go down, unfortunately. So this is just because the negative wing angle does add more drag than it adds downforce on both sides of the car. But trust me, overall, that downforce coming out is a good thing for your speed. So what we're just going to do quickly is, again, the exact same thing. Just make sure that the number that we had in there is the appropriate number, that we've optimized both ends of it. And as you can see, front is still good. And we actually have enough. You can see that taking the wing wicker in the back is a much bigger adjustment. That's why we couldn't do it before, but taking it back. So we're actually pretty close to the same downforce to drag as before. So it could be that we're getting to that threshold where decreasing the wing angle actually produces more drag than reducing the wing wicker would. We're not quite there yet, but we're almost there. But right now we're optimized. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back out on track, do another 6 to 8 laps to judge the balance of the car again. So again, you want to really run the same line that you were running before. So you'll get more and more familiar with running that line. You'll get comfortable running there. Because comfort in this car is very important, especially when you're starting to have to go wheel to wheel with other drivers out on the circuit. You're checking your time. Make sure that the reduction in downforce is actually leading to more speed. And then you're also just checking for the feel of the car, making sure that you're not being too punishing on the tires, that you feel confident that your car is going to stay under you, that you're not going to hit the apron like that every time you do this. Yeah, basically just overall feel. See, I'm still a little bit tight for my liking, and especially through the center of 3 and 4 for this particular set, just for the line that I'm running. If I was running a slightly different line, it would probably be fine. So I'm just going to set 3 or 4 sort of baseline times here for maybe even exploring some new lines here. But
23.782.
So we're down to 23.782. I like having the spotter do the call-outs during testing so that you're really concentrated on your lines and you're not constantly looking down, going into the corners for your lap times, or down at the dash. Of course, my field of view doesn't let me see the dash all the time. It does when I'm in full screen mode, but I'm in windowed mode right now. So. But as you can see, we're faster again. So yeah, let's just, I'm just going to check out some slightly different lines compared to what I was driving before. I noticed just coming in about a half a lane up is making me a little bit quicker through 3 and 4, 1 and 2. It's still really easy going in. Moving it up is still comfortable on the exit. I'm in no danger of actually tracking out and hitting the wall. Don't have to lift at all.
23.803.
You can see it's a little bit slower, just a couple hundred slower, taking a wider arc in for me. So what I'm going to try and do is optimize the middle of the corner going forward with this set.
23.794.
It's all very, very close. The major improvement that we got was from just those settings that I've shown you how to change. That's where you're getting a large portion of your gains from. There are more gains to be had in the car.
23.824.
Which I will get into more later, but this will definitely get you into a much more competitive race in terms of your competition. That being said, once you do start moving up into better competition, you have to be much more on your toes in terms of how you're acting on the track. So again, making sure that you're able to hold your line, whatever set you do, whatever adjustments you make from the set that I'm going to share with you guys, make sure that you can hold your line, beginning of the run, middle of the run, end of the run. Make sure you can go high, you can go low. I guess that's one thing I should cover is just how to be a good member of the lap traffic community. Because guys like Christopher Demerit, he's an alien. He'll come get you no matter what. Naruko on the road course is the same way. So yeah, basically things to know about getting laps in an Indy car. Don't change your line quickly, especially on an oval, especially on a high-speed oval. The people coming up to lap you will get around you. That being said, it is nice to run the high line through the corners when the leaders are coming through. But only if you can run the high line without wrecking or without wandering all over the place. So if you can hold it out here in the on the high groove and let the leaders have that lower groove, that's a nice thing to do because you can stay out. All you have to do is stay out here. It's just running a normal racing line. It's just a slightly slower racing line, which allows the leaders to take the fast line on the bottom. What you want to avoid doing, say you come through the tri-oval, the leaders are coming at you, it looks like he maybe wants to go high, so you suddenly dart down low here. Don't do that. Never do that. Because just because he's coming out towards the wall now doesn't mean he's going to react down and try and pass you low. So just stay on your line. If you do give us the high line or give the leader the high line, that is good. Or take the high line while the leader is there. Give the leader the low line, that is good. As long as you're sticking to a line and not wandering all over the track, you're not coming down from here to here, you're doing a good job. Generally speaking, as I get a little bit high there,
4.049.
as I get a little bit high and smack the wall, just because of my weird lines that I'm taking, what you want to avoid is, changing lanes. You also want to avoid squeezing down. Once the leader has you within a half a second, the leader is going to get by you. You don't really need to fight it. Quite frankly, if the leader is passing you at that point, your race is not with him. Your race is with the guys around you and being the best in class. So don't fight the leader too much, because aero push is a real problem with this car, and the leaders can lose a significant amount of time, and you can really affect their races by racing too hard once they get close to it. It's much easier to just let them go by holding a nice line for them. So basically, where do we go from here? So I'm just going to post this set. You can see it's still tight. It still wants to go up, especially in 3 and 4 as the run goes on. It's by no means a finished set, but it will get you into the race. It'll get you racing competitively with a large portion of the community here. Again, you can affect how the car is feeling by the lines you run. You also do have some tools available to you. You have your anti-roll bars, which you can adjust your front and rear. More front anti-roll bar it makes the car tighter, or rear anti-roll bar makes the car looser, and vice versa for lowering the anti-roll bars. You also have your weight jacker, which basically a positive weight jacker will make the car looser. A negative weight jacker will make the car tighter. So those are your onboard tools. You can adjust during the race as you're going around at speed. In terms of your pit adjustments, you have tire pressures and you have your front and rear wings. This is what you have to adjust during the race. More front wing, looser car; more rear wing, tighter car. And then the opposite for the opposite direction. Tire pressures, I don't tend to muck with them too much during the race. That's something that really you should be setting during practice and testing. Figure out the optimal tire pressures for you in terms of going quick, but also in terms of making sure that your tires last. I tend to increase the right-hand side from the default. The right-hand side tire pressures, both front and rear, and then also adjust the camber to compensate for that higher pressure. But it is very much a feel thing in terms of the lines you want to run. So experiment. I'll just pull into the pits after this lap and I'll show you the basics of adjusting tire pressures. And then after that, we'll wrap up this video, and depending on the reception, we'll be posting some more setup videos as well as some track walkthrough videos. This being Texas, it's fairly straightforward walkthrough. But when we get to the road courses, I'll also be posting some for them, which will be a little bit more in depth in terms of the track walkthrough, what to be looking for, that side of the thing. Okay, so quickly, tire pressures. So what you can see here is basically the last tire temps. They're not necessarily the most accurate in terms of the actual information, but it serves the purpose to illustrate. So basically, this is the last temp right when you hit escape. I like to hit escape fairly quickly after. I don't
After I get off the track, I don't like to go all the way down the pit lane because it makes these temps go lower. So this is the most accurate reflection of the temp. But you want to make sure you're escaping out of the car in a convenient spot that is not going to mess anyone else up in testing. So what you are looking for here is you are looking at your basically your left and middle temperatures on both sides of the car. So your outside and middle on the right, on the left, your inside and middle on the right, and you want them to be about the same. So in this case, you're a little bit low. This, to be quite honest, this front corner doesn't matter that much. But you're a little bit low in terms of front tire pressure. On the rear, it's about right. Again, over here, we're about the same and about the same. So what I like to do is I like to bring it up to about 45, 46. This is just my feel for it. Different people will tell you different numbers. Um, so what does that change do? That change, the more tire pressure you put in, it increases basically how round the surface of the tire is going to be. So it'll actually increase this middle temperature here. It also makes the sidewalls stiffer, which means that you have a slightly higher spring rate, which is why I like the higher pressures. It also tends to reduce the wear on the outside tires a little bit, which particularly at Texas is an important aspect of it. So in order to compensate for the increased middle temperature, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to uh, increase the camber a couple of degrees or a couple of turns. Basically, camber is the lean, so negative camber is leaning in towards the car, positive camber is leaning the top of the tire away from the car. So you have negative camber on the right side, positive camber on the left side. So I've increased the negative camber, so I've increased the lean. Basically, that's going to mean that the inside is going to get a little bit hotter um, in conjunction with that middle getting a little bit hotter, so it keeps the wear fairly similar. The outside is going to lose a little bit of temperature, but that's okay because the majority of the work is being done by the inner and middle portion of the tire anyways. So that to me is just a small feel part that I personally like. Um, it makes the car a little bit looser, those particular adjustments. It gives it a little bit better mechanical grip because of the camber adjustment. Um, So it'll allow me to do a little bit more adjusting with the wings, find the right settings. But basically, this is the setup that I'm going to give you guys. Quickly going over some other changes that you can make in this car without actually going and testing them. Your ballast forward. So that's basically there's a piece of ballast goes below the cockpit. It can be more forward, basically moves this weight forward. Zero is neutral, negative is back. More, the ballast is always there. It's always the same. It's just a position. Further forward, more understeer. Further backward, more oversteer. Really, really straightforward. Um, you also have your anti-roll bars, which you can adjust both here and in the cockpit. So in the cockpit, you just adjust these bar blade positions. The higher the number, the stiffer the bar is. The adjustments you can make in the pits are the actual bar diameter, so you can go large or small. The bar blades is titanium or steel. The larger the larger it is, the stiffer it is. Um, like the bar blades, titanium is less stiff than steel is, so steel will increase the characteristics of the bars. You also have your drop link position, which is related to the anti-roll bars. Basically, wide is your race setting, narrow is your qualifying setting. This ARB preload, basically what this is um, when you adjust your push rods and your spring rates, which basically affects the ride height of the car. It'll affect your preload. especially when you're messing with your crossweight. You want to get this as close to zero as possible. This just happens to be as close as we can get it. Same with your back. And then your weight jacker static always has to be zero in the garage. Some people will set their cars so that once they get in the car, they immediately dial in positive or negative weight jacker. Again, positive means looser, negative means tighter. Um, so some people will dial it in immediately on entry into their car, so they basically get around tech inspection that way. Um, your fuel level in this series will always be 18.5 because there will always be at least one pit stop. Um, that's about it for that. Dampers are the great mystery of the DW12. Few people understand them, and fewer still understand them well enough to actually be confident to change them. Basically, they're your shock absorbers. So your low speed, compression and rebound handle your transient handling. So these are the ones that will actually affect the real handling of the car. Basically, your low speed, what they mean by that isn't the speed of the car, it's the speed of the shock absorber. So low speed is transitioning in and out of corner. It's the slow rise and the slow compress of the shock versus your high speed compression and high speed rebound. That's your bumps in the road. So on a bumpy track, you want this closer to zero. Basically, in the DW12, it goes from negative 23 to zero. Zero is more dampening. Negative 23 is less dampening. So, so these are very fine adjustments that largely affect your entry and your exit of the corners. The place that I found them the most useful is if you're getting loose off the corners. You can dampen some of that, not all of it, but some of that characteristic using some damper. But I could spend an hour talking about dampers and how to adjust them. So we'll just leave you with the concept. And then finally, your engine and gearbox. Your turbo boost pressure, the only time that you can change this is at Indy for qualifying. Other than that, it's always not available. Your engine maps, you can adjust this during the race. 1, 6, and 7 are your full speed, full power engine maps. 6 and 7 just have alternate throttle shaping, so you have different torque curves and different power curves. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are progressively more fuel saving, and then map 8 is your under caution map to save the maximum amount of fuel under caution. For the love of God, do not try and start the race or restart the race in map 8. You will cause chaos. And then, so you have your gearbox. Generally speaking, at least on the ovals, the gears are fairly close, but fourth, fifth, and sixth are generally not quite tall enough to run in the drafts that we start to run when we trim out the cars. So you're going to want to increase these by maybe one, possibly two notches in many scenarios. But again, this is very dependent on the track that we're running at, the conditions, all these sorts of things. So you definitely want to use the practice sessions to figure out exactly the ratios that you want. And then the differential is road course only, so I won't talk about this in this video. All right, so that basically wraps up um, the uh, the walkthrough. Hopefully, you guys found this informative, and then I will share this set that we've created. I'll just quickly show you the lap times. Basically, we started off in the 24.2, 24.1 range, and then our fastest lap was 23.7. So we actually gained 4/10 of a second, basically, just by doing those few adjustments. Um, and then so and you can see I did run some different lines in there, but it was fairly consistent at 23.78, 77, 80, 80, 79, 82. So you can definitely see that it's a fairly consistent, stable set. Um, Again, I started to run some alternate lines, just trying different stuff in this area. So bear that in mind. But basically, this will get you guys off the ground for this car. The rest of it, I'm going to put out some videos, probably not this week or next week, but as time permits for me, discussing some of the other stuff like ride heights and spring rates, dampers, and all that sort of stuff. Um, at least if you guys want me to keep going with this. So give me some feedback. Hopefully you enjoyed this. All right, bye.